What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Going the Distance podcast presented by ImmaculateSports.com. Twitter's at ImacSports.
Instagram is also at ImacSports.
TikTok, YouTube, Immaculate Sports. It's episode 194, and we have a major baseball injury we will get to today. It's Ronald Acuna Jr. We're going to talk about how this changes everything in the National League, and it might be for the worse. Might be for the better if you're a Phillies fan. Get into all of that. Some other baseball talk. Of course, we're down to a final three in basketball. That comes down to this last game tonight. Dallas up 3-0. It's about to start here in 15 minutes, but I'm excited. We got a whole lot of stuff to talk about, especially baseball-wise.
Yeah, something interesting with this episode as well, too, is you might be asking, oh, well, it's 3-0 in the Western Conference Finals right now. Why aren't you guys doing a finals preview this week? Because the finals already has set dates. Game one won't be until June 6th, so we'll be able to do the episode next week and be fine with it. And no sense in doing something now that we can just do next week and
more time for college baseball.
Time in there, exactly. So a lot of baseball today, and then a little bit of basketball, of course, at halftime. Just going over kind of the stuff that happened. But in my opener, I'm going with my school. I'm talking about UCSB winning the Big West and hosting a NCAA regional for the first time in program and school history. It's really, really cool what's going on right now with our team. I believe we're 42 and the exact record. Let me pull it up. 42-12, 25-0 at home. We're the only team in the country that has not lost a game at home this year. Now, regional is all West Coast teams. It's the 1-seed UCSB, of course, 2-seeded San Diego, 3-seeded Oregon, and 4-seeded Fresno State. We'll be playing Fresno State on Friday night at 6 p.m. If you got ESPN Plus, tune into that because that's going to be a fun one as we look to advance to the Super Regional. And we'll go through all the regionals and stuff later on, but I just wanted to hit on that first as my opener. It's been really fun to watch the team right now. Obviously know a couple guys on the team as well too, so watching us play is really fun. And I'm starting the movement of Chomaha. Gauchos to Omaha. There we go.
All right. Yeah, I'm happy for you guys. Out of all the great Southern California baseball, you guys made it out on top this season hosting that game. I believe Oregon State's the only other West Coast hosting a regional. So
Arizona has one as well too.
Okay. Well, Mountain Time doesn't count. Get out of here. All right. Well, my opener is really interesting here because it doesn't. Let's just get into it. All right. Angel Hernandez, the umpire, is retiring after 31 seasons. One of the most famous, one of the most hated on umpires ever. I'll just get this out of the way. I don't think he's the worst ever. He probably gets a little more hate than he deserves, but he is a part of a lot of scandals. But here's the real domino effect here. In 2026, it sounds like they're going to bring in the automated strike zone in some fashion. There's still going to be umpires, but you're going to be able to challenge things most likely. And it's not that Angel Hernandez is this horrible guy who ejects people all the time. It's more about getting that kind of guy out of baseball, getting in the new generation of people who are okay with using computers and numbers. And, shout out to Angel Hernandez, the first domino to fall here for the new era, post-StatCast era.
Yeah, Angel Hernandez, whether he likes it or not, he's an icon. He's an A-list celebrity when it comes to baseball names. And didn't even play in the game, which is kind of crazy to say. Not going to go to the Hall of Fame or anything like that, but definitely an interesting goodbye because everybody's happy that he's gone, and you don't really want to say rude things when they're retiring and whatnot. But he sucks. He sucked at his job. I will say that. So congrats on retirement, Angel. Hopefully we never see you again. So does he can he become a fan of a team or something like that now? How does that work?
So I was doing
these guys research. Are fans.
He was an umpire straight out of high school. So there's a chance he's just one of those dudes who wears the black and white MLB cap like Pete Rose does, Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Dude, speaking of Zach Campbell, I was watching a Yankee game last week, and they're playing at home. Ball hit to right field. Guy with the damn umpire hat comes down with the catch. I'm like, oh my God. Fucking Zach Campbell catches another one. So however many home run balls he has now at this point. I don't want to talk
Thousands.
about him any further. Moving on, though, our normal player, pitcher, and rookie of the week, Skyler. Who did you go with here as your player of the week?
This one was another really close one. Just some crazy offense over the past month. But I'm going to end up going with the top dog of the week, Aaron Judge. He hit 412, 4 homers, 7 ribbies, helping the first place Yankees get back on track. I do want to shout out my honorable mention, though, Jose Ramirez, mashing this week and apparently better than Barry Bonds. Pretty big milestone.
Yeah. Yeah, Aaron Judge is my player of the week as well, too. After giving it to Rafi Devers last week, I knew with Judge having another good week that I had to give this one to him. Like you said, 7 for 17, 2 doubles, 4 homers, 7 RBIs, 412 batting average, and a 1.235 slugging, OPS over 1,700. He's crazy. But with you talking about J-Ram, I do want to hit on something pretty quick as well, too. Like that quote came out yesterday. It's like, oh, I'm better than Barry Bonds or whatever. And all the comments are mad when people don't know that Jose Ramirez is like the most unserious person like on the planet, and he's always joking around and saying all this stuff. So I don't know. I think for the people that understand his character, it definitely elevates that even more because just the legend of Jose Ramirez and kind of the stuff that he does in an unorthodox way that he's gotten to be, one of the best players in the league is pretty interesting. But to all the people who don't understand him, you need to start doing so because this guy's a stud. He's been a stud for a long time. Moving on to pitcher of the week.
Yeah, our guy Chris Bassett had a really good week shutting down the White Sox twice, but he did give up a couple of weeks, and Kyle Bradish did not give up any hits to the White Sox this week. 7 innings, no hit, 11 strikeouts against the White Sox. I give him the nod over 2 quality starts.
Yeah, I went with Kyle Bradish. The 7 shutty, no hits, 11 Ks against the White Sox is big. So he gets that for me. And then the honorable mention does go to Chris Bassett for his 12-inning shutouts and 11 Ks over 2 starts, going 2-0 for the Toronto Blue Jays over this past week. Rookie of the week, Skyler. Who'd you go with here? Interesting choices.
Yeah. Always great pitching for the rookies this year. So I'm going to go with another one. Luis Eel gets another one of these. I believe he won 2 weeks ago for both of us, but another 6 1/3 shutout, 8 strikeouts against Seattle, a team that we thought maybe was getting back on track. Didn't happen against the Yankees very much. Thanks to Luis.
Yeah, I decided to go with a different foreign right-hander that touches 100 with his fastball, and it's a reliever that I went with. 4 games out of the pen, Randy Rodriguez of the San Francisco Giants was dominant in his 4 appearances, 6 2/3 innings, no hit ball, only 1 walk, 7 strikeouts. Perhaps another guy that San Francisco can put in the back of the bullpen as they start to heat up in the past, couple of weeks at this point. All right. We got to talk about it. It's the biggest thing that's happened this past week. The Ronald Acuna torn ACL, second time in 4 years now that he's done this. Last time, it resulted in the Braves winning the World Series. So maybe good news for the Braves. But anyway you slice it, it's obviously not going to be that. I do want to hit on something before we get into the question is top of my mind, this feels like it's a Derrick Rose situation. We have an MVP of the sport. Obviously, Acuna tore his ACL before he won MVP and then got healthy and won it. And then he tears it again, of course. But just throwing that out there, hopefully we don't get that type of scenario where he kind of falls off into the second half of his career. But it seems like it could possibly head that way. Regardless, the question is, how does the Acuna injury impact the Braves? It's obviously a super vague question. There's a whole bunch of different ways you could go into.
Yeah.
But Skyler, what do you think? And what do you think are the impacts of this?
So my first thought immediately was we got to find a quick replacement because there are no prospects in their top 30 that could come up this year. But I'll hold off on the possible replacements for now. I know that's the second part of your question, most likely for me. So yeah, this is brutal for Atlanta. Just a terrible start to the season, and Acuna was still providing a whole bunch of value, even though he couldn't hit wherever he's on the field. You mentioned his legacy is on the line here. I was thinking just on the top, well, maybe he just has to DH. Well, shit, he got hurt base running. So does it even matter? Well, this was destined to happen, right? They're so banged up. I think I have to take Philly over them, but slow starts can be overcome. We just got to wait and see, and we'll get into the rest after you talk for a little bit.
Yeah, I do think it kind of puts Atlanta into panic mode super early. Even though they're 6 games out and it's nearing the end of May, they still got 4 months of baseball to play. But with how Philly's played and with how Atlanta's been, they've been underperforming. And I think something with Acuna is you kind of felt like you're going to be okay if you were in second place and down 6 games if you're in July or something like that, because one day Acuna just snaps into it and he's good to go, hits 1 dot the rest of the year and does all the MVP stuff that he did last year. But now you're putting a lot more stress on the guys like Albie, Riley's, and Olsen, who have already had struggles to produce this year. Austin Riley just got back from injury yesterday, so that's not the greatest. Or I mean, it's good that he's back, but he's just coming off injury now, and only has a 688 OPS in 2024, so he hasn't been the normal Austin Riley that we've used to been seeing over the last 4 years. Ozzie Albies only 721 OPS in 2024 and a 603 OPS over the last 15 games with 0 homers. So he's been struggling completely. Matt Olson, the one guy who has started to heat up, he's only got a 745 OPS in 2024. But within those last 15 games, they have gotten some ridiculous production out of him with a 934 OPS and 4 home runs. One thing that is good for them is they're getting Sean Murphy back. They got him back, I believe, yesterday. But it does put them into panic mode because you don't have a Ronald Acuna in your lineup anymore. They can kind of just do whatever on any given night. And I know he hasn't done that, so far at this point in the season, or I guess this season in general, but you kind of just expected the Braves to be fine out of nowhere and go on a stretch where they win, 20 out of 21 or like 30 out of 32 or whatever. So it begs the question, how do they answer, to this, hole that they have in their lineup and just their team in general? I came up with a whole bunch of dudes that I think could be replacements because I don't think Forrest Wall or whoever they have in the minor league system is going to be a valid guy to go ahead and place that. Do you have anybody that you singled out or a couple guys that you want to talk about?
Yeah, the first couple rental options I saw that would be, actually realistic in my eyes, because I agree. I think they are going to go into panic mode. I have Mark Canha and Tommy Pham. They're on under-proving teams right now and on 1-year deals, not that expensive. You could get them right now for nothing, probably. If you really want a serious option, I don't know how the trade would look, but there's Tyler O'Neill. The Braves have, traded with Boston recently. They know each other. It's just, does Boston want more pitching from them? They don't really need it right now. So I don't really know who else they're looking at. No?
Yeah, there's 7 guys that I have listed that could be some possible options to me. Some cheaper options as well as some more expensive. A couple of the cheaper ones first. Kevin Pillar has been really good for the Angels so far in the season. I think he can go to Atlanta like tomorrow, and the Angels will be fine getting rid of him. And I think with how he's been for the Angels, 173 WRC plus at this point in the season, Braves would be like, fuck it, why not? Take a flyer on a guy who has postseason experience, who has played in the big moment, and that's kind of like, one of those Jock Peterson, Jorge Soler, Eddie Rosario guys that kind of just get hot out of nowhere. Another guy, Rob Refsnyder, hitting 3 for the Red Sox tonight, and they absolutely love him in Boston, which is kind of crazy. Actually, not that crazy because he rakes, but just in general, he could be an option. I assume that he's not going to be ridiculously expensive. Tommy Pham's another guy as well, too, with the White Sox, that they're obviously not doing anything. The White Sox will be more than happy to get, something back for a guy that they just signed in the not even in the offseason, about a month and a half ago. And he's been decent for them. Gavin Sheets as well, too, kind of same type of thing. I think they'd be fine with getting stuff back for him. Jesse Winker of the Nationals, he's, kind of probably the cheapest option in here because he hasn't produced as much as these other guys. But he's still been an above average bat that can, provide some left-handed power within their lineup. The last 2 guys a bit more expensive. Michael Conforto of the Giants, 137 WRC plus and 154 plate appearances. Obviously, the Giants aren't like a stellar team right now in how they've been playing. recently kind of shows that they might be around in this wild card chase once it's all said and done. However, with their youth movement and some of the guys that they've been trying to phase out and, get Matos and Ramos in and playing time, I think Conforto could be a casualty of that. And him going to Atlanta, I think, would be a perfect solution, and maybe even get a cheap starter back for him or something like that. And then the one that I don't want to talk about, but I am going to talk about because it's the A's and the Braves, it's Brent Rooker. He's probably going to be the most expensive. And so it'd be, longer than a single year thing for him because he's got, I think, 3 or 4 more years left to control. But he's been one of the best hitters in baseball over the last 2 years. Why wouldn't the Braves want to go ahead and get him? I think they have some pieces that the A's would be attracted to because, I don't know, they've had some guys fizzle out in pitching like Bryce Elder that the A's, I don't know, something in past history we've been attracted to. And they've got some other guys like Kirsten Waltrip that could be pretty damn good. And Spencer Schwellenbach, who's making his debut today, could be, solid guys. So I think those are the 7 options. I think another guy that you said as well, too, I'm blanking on it. Mark Canha would be a reasonable thing if the Tigers are willing to get rid of him. I know they're like slightly under 500 right now, so maybe they want to stick with them, but you never really know how that goes. There's a ton of options. Just who they go with and how they produce is obviously the biggest question.
Yeah.
Moving on, though, kind of hit it on the same spot there at the end with, adding pieces to your team and whatnot. We're somewhat nearing hot stove season where, the calendar will move to June by our next episode. Obviously, the trade deadline isn't until the end of July, or now it's in the beginning of August, I think. But regardless, still a couple months away, but something that we just want to keep our, head on for because it's always pretty interesting. Who do you think will be the most aggressive as we move into hot stove season? Who are your top 3 teams in there, Scott?
My number 1 team's got to be Baltimore right now. The O's have been nearly perfect with their game management this season, but I can't help thinking about the kinds of players they could trade with this massive haul of MLB-ready prospects. They're only a game and a half behind the Yankees, the first place, and they have guys like Kierstead, Hauser, Holiday, Mayo, even Enrique Bradfield looking for ABs in the next year or two. And this team doesn't really have a lot of ABs to give out right now. So any of those guys could be available, except for Jackson Holiday, most likely, right?
Well,
let me go down the list or just stick at 1.
Yeah, I'll let you go through your 3 here.
All right, bet. Number 2, Arizona Diamondbacks. They were aggressive already this season, going after Jordan Montgomery. And after getting to the World Series last year, I'm sure they think they can do it again. There's not a whole lot of top prospectness going on. Most of them have been up. That's why they were so good last year. But that's more of one I have a hunch about. And then the last one, I do have the Giants. They've never been afraid to go after rentals, ever, even with the young movement coming. And losing so many guys to injury down the stretch and then winning 8 out of 10, that might give them some false hope here. And I would think their offer of a prospect would be higher than the Padres or Dodgers. So that's why I added the Giants instead.
Yeah. One thing I will say about Baltimore is I really wanted to put them on this list. However, I think their team's so good that they don't really have people that would add that would make it better and make it worth it right now. I think maybe in the rotation, adding, another starter that, would be their 5 starter, but not actually a 5 starter. And then bullpen stuff would be really reasonable. But when you look at their lineup, man, there's just I wouldn't want to take any of those guys out. All the guys that you have, the platoon that you have with Mountcastle and Hearn, really, really works. Whether it's, Austin Hayes or Cedric Mullen that having bad seasons, those are 2 of your guys that were all-stars last year. So I think you kind of got to, serve the respect to them and give them at least the rest of the year on that. I could see him being really aggressive, but I just don't feel like it's the right thing to do at this exact moment for them. But over the next few years, I mean, it's something that they're going to have to do if they don't start, getting, later into the postseason comparison to last year. The 3 teams that I had, first is Atlanta, because they always are, feels like they're super active in this spot because, one, they need to fill the spot of Acuna. They likely need to add a 5 starter. I don't like Schwellenbach as their number 5 guy at the moment. I think they have a solid 4 with Sale, Lopez, Freed, and Morton. But the fifth guy is kind of, who you're going to go with there. And then you can always add bullpen pieces. I think that's a recurring thing for everything. You're never going to see a team that has a complete bullpen. There's always going to be a team always going to be teams that need something. Next one is Houston. I think with how they are right now, I don't think they're going to be at the point where they sell, because that's just not how we know the Houston Astros are. Even if they are under 500, say nearing the trade deadline, I don't think there's going to be another team that kind of hops out, crazily ahead of the division. I think Houston's going to be completely okay with what's ever going on. So I think they're regardless going to try to make one last, or, one of the last runs at it with this core. Whether they keep Kyle Tucker or not in the remaining off seasons is kind of yet to be seen. But I think they could add a starter or two, because you don't want Spencer Arrighetti running out there for you. And they could add a bat at first base or outfield. Chas McCormick hasn't been the greatest. I think Mauricio Dubon's not going to be a guy that posts a 330 average throughout the entire season. Same thing with Jake Myers. That could be a spot where you add a guy. And then first base, Abreu and Singleton, not really the guys that you would want at that position, I'd say. I think something better is capable for them, and they have some of the prospects that I think teams would be willing to trade for in order to get those guys. And the last one is the Dodgers. I think with how they are in the outfield could be a question. I think Pages has been a bit underwhelming over the past month or so, and I think moving on, not from him, but moving on from him this specific season could be an option for them, as well as just like the extra platoon bats that they tend to add throughout the season that just make them better as a whole. Helps, make that lineup 7 through 9, as good as, 4 through 6 for most other teams. So Dodgers doing that, Adam bullpen as well too. I think they'll be fine rotation wise, because they should have guys coming back throughout the season. As far as, well, they already got Walker Buehler back, but they should be getting Kershaw back and maybe somebody else as well too. So I think the rotation's fine, but I think those three teams could be the most aggressive teams that we see going into trade deadline season. The other side of that, though, Skyler, what teams do you expect to sell off the most at the deadline?
Yeah, by the way, I agree with Houston. Didn't put them in the sell team. I think they're going to roll the dice because they know they can get into the tournament and anything can happen after that. But we'll start it off with the New York Mets. That's a pretty clear one to me. I think we've been anticipating the massive sell-off in New York for about 2 years now. And it looks like we're pretty close to that, considering all the expiring deals, them falling down to fourth place in the East. Seems like everybody will be on the table except for maybe Lindor, because no one can afford him.
I'm on the same page as that one. I feel like I should hit that off first. Alonso, Marte, McNeil, JD, Sevy, Manaea, two guys who signed in the offseason have been good starters. All reasonable names to move.
Yeah, when we're talking about selling the team, you always have to mention the A's. And even though I don't think it's going to be that mind-blowing, crazy-ass deal that everyone's talking about with Mason Miller, I still think they have a lot of overachievers and expiring deals. And it's the A's. They're not bringing these guys back. Guys like Austin Adams and Seth Brown have some extra value maybe we didn't expect than original. And then, of course, there's Ross Stripling, J.D. Davis, Alex Wood, Scott Alexander. Probably none of them will be on the team next year. So you might as well see what's out there. And that's 10 guys right there. That's going to be near the top of team selling.
Yeah. I left the A's off the list because I don't think they'll move, like you said, kind of off the more valuable pieces. I don't think Rooker gets traded. I don't think we see, Miller get traded, because that would be crazy. I don't think we see Blackburn get traded. I think he's kind of stuck in it now for, however long he goes. Toro is a guy that could be traded. I think
That's
he's
true.
an option because he's been, really good, and I'm not exactly sure when he becomes a free agent. But as far as teams have to offer, I left the A's off because I just don't think there's as many valuable pieces.
Yeah. All right, my last team here. I tried to have some kind of random bold prediction here, and it may not even be that bold, but I'm going to say St. Louis finally blows it up. It could just be us begging them to finally do this because it's not working out. But hey, Goldie and most of the pitching staff can walk next season. They got to do something because they're horrible. I understand if you want to keep the manager, even though everyone hates him, but just got to start doing something different because the old way does not work anymore.
Yeah. I left the Cardinals off my list, but they're a team that I was thinking about putting because there's some interesting guys on that list and a lot of interesting contracts as well too. The two other teams I have that are joining the Mets, I have the White Sox, and I guess you can make the same case for the A's, where it's just like they don't have that many guys that are super valuable. But I think Louis Bob alone will be someone that probably could get traded at some point this season, and that's probably better than anybody that the A's have to offer. Not including Mason Miller because I don't think he will get traded, but I think besides that, he's pretty much the most valuable guy there. Tommy Pham's been good. Gavin Sheets has been good. A couple starters have been decent, and maybe a bullpen piece as well too. I think they could move off of. And then one team that you didn't mention that I kind of surprised you didn't, because I think with how they are right now is pretty interesting, and they have some guys that have been rumored to be moved off of. It's Toronto Blue Jays. They can move Vladdy. They can move Bo Bichette. They can move Kikuchi. They can move Bassett. They can move Kiermaier, Justin Turner. All these guys pretty much on their team don't have long-term deals, except for maybe the pitchers in Gosman and somebody else as well too. But it's just with how they are in the division, are they really going to compete with the Orioles or the Yankees over the next 3 to 4 years? I think at some point you kind of got to realize where you are and kind of pack up the bags, because it wasn't working with the guys that you had in the past few years, and the team was better the last couple of years, and now it's worse. And it's clear that the guys that you have right now aren't going to make it work. So go trade Vladdy to Seattle, make it happen or something like that, and give Bo Bichette to another team that needs a shortstop. So I think Toronto could be a team, surprisingly, that moves a ton of pieces once we get towards trade deadline season.
Yeah, no doubt. I left them up because just kind of in my brain, I have engraved, all right, 2024, that's the year the Mets sell everyone. 2025, that's the year Toronto sells everyone. It seems like too tough of a decision for them to do this year. Like, shit, do we pick Bo, or do we pick Vladdy, or do we pick the pitching staff, or do we trade everyone? What happens with Alek Manoah? What happens with Davis Schneider? I don't know. We have another year to decide, so fuck it, let's wait.
Yeah, and I think also as outsiders too, it becomes like, oh, just move off of them. Why not? But obviously we're not seeing all the internal things that are going on, and something else with it too. It's like you're going to get more if you trade them now rather than wait next year, unless they go on a crazy boom or something like that. But it's hard to move off of some of those pieces that you've marketed as, the next generation. And
like
to admit
Springer.
You failed is really tough. Yeah, Springer as well too. But I don't think anybody wants him because he's been terrible this year. Moving on to some guys that people do want. We're talking about who would you rather have. And I put this stuff on the spreadsheet because I think it's pretty eye-opening to some of these comparisons. Where you just hear a name and you think somebody's better than somebody else, but when you look at the stats, maybe it doesn't tell the full story, or maybe you're learning something else that you haven't looked about. So we got 4 different comparisons here. The first of which is 2 of the youngest and best shortstops in the league right now. It's Gunnar Henderson and Bobby Witt. Together, who would you rather have and why?
I'm going to have to go with Bobby Witt Jr. on this one. Maybe in 10 years from now, if the power is still there with Gunnar Henderson, I may change my mind, but that's a 5-tool MVP caliber player we're talking about. Bobby Witt Jr., that doesn't come around every year. To hit over 300, he has the 5th most hits in baseball. And to have that much power and speed also, just as a throw-in, just a ridiculous player. And that's not taking anything away from Gunnar. He's got, 17 homers? That's a crazy number.
Yeah, for my stats, I used this year and last year, kind of comparison to kind of see how they're doing in that aspect. So I compared them. When you look at Gunnar and Bobby, Gunnar has 6 more home runs with 45. Bobby has damn near 40 more stolen bases with 65. Higher walk rate goes to Gunnar, but the higher strikeout rate also goes to Gunnar at 25% comparison to Bobby Witt's 17%. WRC plus goes to Gunnar by 10 at 134. And the WAR is quite swayed to Bobby at 9.4 to Gunnar's 7.8. Obviously, both ridiculously good stats. Regardless, barrel rate's very similar, both at 12%. And hard hit rate goes to Gunnar slightly above 7% higher at 53.4%. You look at defense, I think, is the next thing. And 15 defensive runs saved for Gunnar at shortstop with 2 outs above average. And Bobby Witt is one of the most confusing persons to look at their advanced stats fielding because he's got 0 defensive run saves, but 24 outs above average. So depending on where you look, Bobby is good, Bobby's bad, Bobby's great, in my opinion, as far as defensively goes. And so is Gunnar. So I guess it goes to who's younger. Gunnar's 22, Bobby's 23. And I think when you look at Gunnar, we're starting to see if Carlos Correa panned out exactly the way that we thought it is, it's Gunnar Henderson. Because it's the ridiculous power. It's the great defense. Maybe not the fastest, but that tall, big, strong shortstop that can put the league on notice is Gunnar Henderson. Obviously from the left-handed side, and created an exactly work out that way. Career high, I think it's like 26 homers or something like that. And Gunnar might have had that last year if he's not going to have it by the All-Star break this year. So he's definitely on pace to get way past that. But when we were looking at the prospect of Carlos Correa, I think that's kind of what we saw with him. But as the full player, you just can't pass up on Bobby, man. He's got the WAR, he's got the speed, he's got the fielding, he's got just the more complete package. And I absolutely love Gunnar Henderson, one of my favorite players in the league. But Bobby is the choice here, and there's really nothing else you could say. What about William Contreras versus Adley Rutschman?
Yeah, this one was a crazy one. When I was looking up these numbers, I had a feeling you knew what you were doing because they have like identical numbers, I'm sure, on your 2-year comparison, thinking back on it. But I kind of feel like this is more sustainable for Adley Rutschman. He's a switch hitter. He has less tread on the tires defensively. And there's a reason we chose him number 1 in the preseason rankings. It's because he's great at everything. But obviously, Contreras is having a nutty year himself, too. I hope he stays healthy and they can both just be 1A and 1B. But if I have to pick one, it's Adley Rutschman. Sorry.
Yeah, it's crazy. Contreras is 1 month older than Adley Rutschman. So they are practically the exact same age. The 2 best catchers in the league are 26 years old. How awesome is that? And likely going to remain that way for, a while as long as these guys stay healthy. As far as the games go, that's something big within catchers. 204 within the last 2 years for Adley, 194 for Contreras. So relatively close there. Adley has 5 more homers at 30, comparison to Contreras' 25. The walk rate, about the same, 11%, 10% among the two. Contreras has a higher strikeout rate at 20.4, comparison to Adley's 15.4. WRC plus, Contreras is also slightly higher at 136. Adley's on 126. The hard hit rate and stuff like that. So how are they hitting the ball? Relatively same in the barrel. Hard hit rate goes to Contreras by a little bit. However, the defense looks to Adley as well too. So, this is really tough because I think when you just originally say these names, you think Adley right away. Like he's, a switch hitter catcher, he walks all the time. He's, perfect for the lineup and stuff like that. But when you break down the stats, and especially the WAR, Contreras 8.4 WAR, Adley 7.0 WAR, it doesn't say it's close. That kind of shocked me. I think Contreras is the guy I'm going to take because it also feels like Contreras is older usually. And maybe it's just Adley being the number 1 prospect when he came up and how that's worked out and how good it's been. You feel like he's a bit younger, but he was a bit of an older prospect as well, too. So he's not that, 21-year-old guy that came up or anything like that. I'm taking Contreras. I definitely understand Adley, but with how everything pans out, I just think Contreras is the guy who is going to, be better in the long run, I would say, because his hits the ball harder. He walks just as much. The strikeout rate's not too far different. Defense is about the same as well, too. I just think I'm going to take the guy that hits the ball a little bit harder.
I'm going to take the aura.
Yeah. Both studs, regardless.
Yeah.
If you have one of these 2 guys, you are not complaining about your catching position because these are, again, 1A, 1B when it comes down to it. Another interesting one is C.J. Abrams versus Anthony Volpe. I think Volpe's rookie season kind of tarnished his picture a little bit, and kind of same thing with C.J. Abrams. Abrams bounced back really well in his second season. Volpe's doing that this year. Together, who do you take here?
Yeah, another great one. I mean, same age, same position, same exact OPS this season. But I'm going to go with Volpe on this one. I looked at it. I don't think it was outs of above average, but it was a Fangraphs defensive war that I was looking at, not even Baseball Reference. They had Volpe like 12 points higher. It said a lot for me. He walks more. He's going to have a lot more opportunities for big moments in New York. And I know we're kind of getting off topic with the hypothetical playoff here, but they love Volpe over there. They're going to give him the keys to the kingdom if he deserves it. And he's probably going to be their next superstar, especially if Juan Soto doesn't come back.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting comparison because there's a lot of things that are super similar. However, I think the thing that sets this apart is the defense. CJ Abrams was one of the worst, like, range-wise defenders in the league over the past 2 years. And Anthony Volpe has been great at shortstop with the Yankees ever since he came up, regardless of how he's hitting. He's always playing good defense. So defense goes to Volpe. The power is really, really close, but I give it to Abrams, even though they have the same amount of homers over the last 2 years. The speed, I give to Abrams as well, too. Volpe's a more efficient base stealer as far as percentage-wise goes, because I think he's only got caught like once or twice in his career. But CJ Abrams, the volume of it is kind of what excites me there. I think as like an approach hitter, they're pretty like interesting comparison because Abrams walks less, but also strikes out way less. Volpe walks more, but also strikes out way more. So I think it's kind of a wash there. And hitting the ball hard is also another aspect as well too. They're pretty damn close because it's 36.9 hard hit rate comparison to 40 for Volpe and 7% to 7.7% for barrel. So I think it's a wash there as well too. Just the defense alone is kind of the thing that sets me apart, though. I think I'm taking Volpe. I'm a big Abrams fan, and I'm a big Volpe fan too because I have him on both my fantasy teams. But I'm taking the new age Derek Jeter as far as the aura in New York and what he's got going on there because he's a stud. But so is CJ Abrams. So Volpe's my choice. Last one, we got two of the best players in the league, no doubt. Very, I'd say, different makeups with Kyle Tucker and Juan Soto.
Yeah, I'm gonna hear you out for a Tucker argument because he puts up video game numbers. Excuse me, but to me, Juan Soto's in his own tier of outfielders. He's still on a Hall of Fame trajectory. He has 18 more hits. We're talking this season than Tucker. And overall, I think I'm going to choose him. If I have to pinch hit in the ninth inning of a playoff game, I'm probably picking Juan Soto. Even if Tucker puts up the same exact numbers, right? All these guys are similar. That's why we're having this conversation. But Juan Soto's in his own tier, man.
Yeah. I think when you look at hitter, it's going to be Juan Soto, but I think everything else goes to Kyle Tucker. The stolen bases, the defense, the hard hit rate is pretty damn close as well, too. And I think as total as a hitter, I think Kyle Tucker is a lot closer to Juan Soto than what some people think it is. I'm still taking Soto. I'm not going to go a deep dive into stats because I've done that for all the other guys. I think it's some of the stuff is pretty straightforward here. I'm not going to do the same thing. But it's a lot closer than what people would think because Juan Soto's got this vibe about him that, he's this 25-year-old superstar, all these things, he's best hitter in the league. But Kyle Tucker is like a top 5 hitter in the league. And he does all these other things as well, too. He steals bases. He's only 27 years old as well, too. So he's, not crazily older than Juan Soto. And I think it's time that, Kyle Tucker gets his national respect. I know, ball knowers understand how good he is. But he's just not in that same conversation when it comes to, a Juan Soto or an Aaron Judge or something like that. And he deserves to be because he is ridiculously good at the game of baseball.
I'd be shocked if he was traded this year.
Yeah, I would be too.
Yeah.
I would be so fucking happy, though, because I don't want to face that guy anymore. And he absolutely destroys us whenever we face him. So Kyle Tucker, go sign in like Miami or something like that when you get older. and you're a free agent in 2026. Anyways, moving on from that, we had our 4. Who would you rather have? Just something interesting, a little, I guess, exercise or something, if you want to call it that, where you just some comparisons aren't as close or closer than what you might think they are, based off of the name value. And once you look into it, it could be a little bit different than what you expect. But one thing that we do have to talk about is the NCAA regionals. There's 16 of them. I'll go through all the different teams who are in each one and their seeds. The first of which is Georgia, the Athens regional. Number 1, Georgia, of course. Number 2, UNC Wilmington. Number 3, Georgia Tech. And number 4, Army. That kicks off Friday. All these kicked off Friday. So just get ready to turn on ESPN Plus if you have that, or ESPN2 or ESPNU, whatever channels you got. Bryan College Station regional, hosted by Texas A&M. A&M's, of course, number 1 seed. Louisiana Raging Cajuns, number 2. Texas, number 3. And Grambling State, number 4. Chapel Hill Regional, hosted by Northern Carolina. UNC is number 1. LSU is number 2. Wofford, number 3. And LIU, I'm blanking on exactly what abbreviation that stands for. They are the number 4 seed. Charlottesville Regional, hosted by Virginia. Number 1, Virginia, of course. Mississippi State, number 2. A controversial number 2 seed, that is. Number 3, St. John's. And number 4, UPenn, the Ivy League school. Clemson Regional, number 2, Vanderbilt, number 3, Coastal Carolina, and number 4, High Point. Interesting college name there.
That's a nasty regional.
Corvallis Regional, Oregon State at the number 1, of course. UC Irvine at the number 2 with a 43-12 record this season. Nichols at number 3, and Tulane at number 4. The Fayetteville Regional, hosted by Arkansas. Number 1, of course, Arkansas. Number 2, La Tech. Number 3, Kansas State. And number 4, Southeastern Missouri State. It just says Mo State.
Yeah.
So I was hoping I wasn't wrong there. Greenville Regional, hosted by East Carolina. They've been a really good team over the past, however many years at this point. Wake Forest, number 2. That's a fun one. VCU, number 3, and then Evansville, number 4. The Knoxville Regional, hosted by the big old Tennessee at 50-11. Southern Miss at number 2, Indiana, number 3, and Northern Kentucky at number 4. The Lexington Regional, this one's hosted by Kentucky. Indiana State at number 2. Illinois, oh my God, at number 3, and Western Michigan at number 4. The Norman Regional, hosted by Oklahoma, of course, with Duke as the 2 seed, UConn as the 3 seed, and Oral Roberts as the 4 seed. They seem to be getting their name into some big tournaments over the past few years. Raleigh Regional, hosted by NC State, with South Carolina as the 2, James Madison as the 3, and Bryant as the 4. The Santa Barbara Regional, hosted by your very own UC Santa Barbara that we already talked about, so we won't go over those teams, but I guess we will. Why not? UCSB, San Diego, Oregon, and Fresno State in that order. The Stillwater Regional, second one in Oklahoma, of course, with Nebraska as the 2 seed, Florida as the 3 seed, and Niagara as the 4 seed. How about that?
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy. I didn't know a waterfall had a college, but anyways, Tallahassee is the second to last one. Florida State is the host there, of course, with Bama, UCF, and Stetson.
That one will be emotional.
As that one was kind of crazy there. And then Tucson Regional is the last one, hosted by Arizona. Pac-12 winners, RIP the Pac-12. DBU, which is Dallas Baptist. That's always a fun, scary team to watch out for. They've got a ton of bats that go crazy. West Virginia at number 3, and GCU Grand Canyon at number 4. So out of the regional, Skyler, what are your takeaways? I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but what are some of the things that you said, oh, that's kind of cool, or something that you had on your mind as we were going through this?
Well, first of all, just for people who aren't fans of college baseball, there's a lot of really popular teams in the tournament every year. There's a lot of really cool sleeper teams. You have teams like Indiana State, they just went on a crazy run in the NIT. Now we get to watch them again right after. I'll tell you right now, though, some of these regionals in the South are going to get really emotional. I'm just looking at the Greenville here in East Carolina with Wake Forest. That's a crazy matchup. to have their Clemson regional, Clemson, Vanderbilt, and Coastal, 3 teams who have been in the championship in the last 20 years. I'm excited. I'll tell you that. And I would be very scared if you're playing a top team from the South right now.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun things going on. There's a lot of really good prospects that are in there. Pretty much all of the guys that you would want to watch, whether it's Caglione, Florida sneaks in, Bizana, and Oregon State hosted a regional. Charlie Condon and Georgia hosting a regional. Vance Honeycutt, JJ Weatherholtz, Chase Burns. Like, you got all these dudes, Hagen Smith. Like, all of the big players are there, and that's great to see for college baseball because you need to start getting this to be, popularity that it had, 20, 30 years ago. And I think that'd be great for the sport. Absolutely. Go Chos.
Yeah. All right. Well, we have one more playoff game left in the conference finals rounds here, it looks like. But actually, Minnesota's up by 10 in the first quarter. Maybe we will get that game 5. Anthony Edwards is on a little bit of a heater, it looks like. But we'll start with the Eastern Conference here since this is still going. Boston gets the sweep. They win in a close game by 3 last night. Jaylen Brown wins MVP, so I'm happy about that one. I had a feeling he'd have a game where he goes completely ham. And, well, he had 40 points in game 2. And a big win against Indy to avoid the upset. But no Halliburton, really tough for Indiana. You got to think that Boston's going to be the favorite to win the championship now. But we will talk about the West. Also not as interesting as you would hope. Dallas up 3-0. Like I said, Luka Doncic is on a different planet. Kyrie Irving has had his moments. Maxi Kleber is finally back today for the first time all series. So this team hasn't even cracked their potential yet. And they're up 3-0 in the Western Conference Finals. There's no way Minnesota's coming back. It's never been done. So 99.9% here, Dallas, Boston. And I'm leaning Boston. I won't make an official prediction. Originally, I had Denver over Boston, but obviously Denver's gone. And I like the matchup for Boston. A lot of different scoring options that probably going to give Dallas a headache once they get there.
I'm not counting out Minnesota, man. Not counting it out.
That'd be ridiculous.
Chance. Hell yeah, it would. Won't that be something to start the GOAT talk? No.
Maybe.
We're a long ways away from that. But anyways, moving on to our Layups bowl predictions of this past week. Interesting week. My layup was Celtics-Wolves finals. Still hold on to that. We'll see if that had a chance over the next week or so. Skyler had Pittsburgh over SF on Wednesday. That was
they choked.
Jared Jones versus Blake Snell. Good read. But the Pittsburgh Pirates sold. Maybe the first 5 innings is the move to play for the future. My layup this week is taking Sean Strickland in UFC 302. He's minus 250, so it's not like it's a crazy pick or anything like that. But his fight on Saturday night should be a fun one. And I'm taking the American to get the dub.
All right. Also going with some baseball here. It hasn't been perfect this year, but if I can get 1 out of 2 every week, I'm going to ride with it. So last week I went with Washington on one of my bets. We'll get into that, but I'm going to go against him here. My guy Tanner Bybee from Fullerton on the bump for Cleveland. They're going to get it done against Patrick Corbin. They're at home. It's soft throwing lefty. It's bound to happen, guys.
Last week's bowl prediction was Skeen's 6 innings pitched, 10 Ks versus the Giants on Thursday morning. He got those 6 innings pitched, but did not get 10 Ks. He only had 3, surprisingly. So good job by the Giants there. They did win that game, but Skeens pitched well in that. Skyler had Washington over Seattle on Friday. That did happen. Mackenzie Gore was really good in that one and gets the green for Skyler. This week, I had a crazy bowl prediction. It's Dustin the Diamond Poirier plus 435 versus Islam Makhachev on Saturday night. That's the main card of UFC 302. And I'm pulling him for the American as well here. It's time for Islam to fall.
I will probably be rooting for that, but I just have a feeling he's going to get the snot beat out of him. But hey, that's what happens. That's what UFC's for, to watch people smack each other around. But like I said earlier, another baseball. Looks like it's going to be decent odds for the Astros at home against Minnesota. It's going to be Ronald Blanco's first start back from the controversy. And normally I would bet against him, but for some reason, I'm going to take Houston over Minnesota. Pablo Lopez hasn't been great down the stretch, and maybe we can get one more game of Kyle Tucker magic on Friday night because I wasn't expecting to see them be underdogs at home.
Yeah. That's going to do it, though, for episode 194. Skyler, you got any closing remarks?
Watch college baseball this weekend. It's going to be awesome.
Yep, watch college baseball. Go, Chose. Hopefully when we're talking next week, I'm still happy and we're playing in the Super Regional. Hopefully at home as well, too, because that'd be really cool. If you are watching the game on Friday, I'll be there, 6 o'clock for Fresno State. So hopefully you see us in the stands. It's going to be a fun one. So tune into that, and I'll end it the way that I want to. The next guy's got some other words as well, too, after me. But with the word of Chomaha.
That's a good one to end on. Chomaha. Good luck, man. We'll see you next week.